I'm Liam, 30 years old, and my own brother tried to erase me from his life because of a scar on my face. A scar I got saving his life. Before I tell you how his bride destroyed him in front of 200 people for it, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I read every single one. Let me take you to the moment that almost broke me. The sun was beating down on the manicured lawns of the Grand Oak Resort. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my brother Gavin's life. He stood there in a tailored tuxedo that probably cost more than my truck, his hair perfectly coiffed, his smile practiced for the cameras. Beside him was Emily, looking radiant in white, though her smile seemed a little strained. My parents, Margaret and Robert, were beaming, practically glowing with pride. And then there was me, standing on the edge of the group trying to make myself small. The photographer, a nice guy named Sam who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, was trying to arrange us for the family portrait. "Okay, everyone squeeze in tight," Sam said, waving his hand. "Let's get a big smile." I stepped forward, moving to stand next to my father. That's when Gavin held up a hand. "Wait," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the chatter like a knife. "Stop." He walked over to Sam, whispering something I couldn't hear. Sam looked uncomfortable. He glanced at me, then back at Gavin. "Are you sure?" Sam asked loud enough for us to hear. "Just do it," Gavin snapped. Then he turned to look at me, and his expression wasn't one of brotherly love. It was disgust. Pure, unadulterated disgust. "Crop him out," he said, his voice carrying over the sudden silence of the guests. "He's too ugly for the family album. He ruins the aesthetic." My stomach dropped. I looked at my mother, hoping, praying she would say something. Mom just adjusted her pearls and nodded. "Yes, Gavin is right. The lighting is tricky enough without that distraction. He ruins the aesthetic." My dad? He just looked at his shoes. The guests whispered. I could feel their eyes on the left side of my face, on the thick, jagged scar that runs from my temple down to my jawline. It's angry, red, and impossible to hide. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. I turned to walk away. I wasn't going to stay where I wasn't wanted. That's when Emily, the bride, did something no one expected. She didn't just stand there. She moved, fast. She grabbed my arm with a grip that surprised me. "If he leaves," she yelled, her voice shaking with rage, glaring at Gavin, "I leave. He is the only real man in this family." The silence that followed was deafening. But to understand why Emily said that and why my own family treated me like a stain on their perfect picture, you have to go back. You have to understand who I am and, more importantly, who they are. I'm a mechanic. I own a small garage on the outskirts of town. It's not much to look at. Grease stains on the floor, the smell of oil and stale coffee permanently in the air. But it's mine. I built it from the ground up. My hands are always stained. My fingernails usually have dirt under them no matter how much I scrub. I drive a beat-up Ford F-150 that's seen better decades, let alone better days. Gavin? Gavin is the opposite. He's a lifestyle consultant and real estate agent. I still don't really know what that means, except that he spends a lot of time taking pictures of his food and posing in front of houses he hasn't sold yet. He drives a leased BMW, wears suits that cost a month's rent, and talks about hustle culture, while living in a condo our parents helped him buy. But the real difference between us isn't the job or the clothes. It's the history. I wasn't always the ugly one. 20 years ago, I was just a normal 10-year-old kid. Gavin was 14. We were on a camping trip up near the gorge. Dad had parked the old station wagon near a slope to unpack. He forgot the parking brake. I still remember the sound of the gravel crunching as the car started to roll. Gavin was in the back seat, playing with his Game Boy headphones on. He didn't hear Mom screaming. The car was picking up speed, heading right for the drop-off. It wasn't a cliff, but it was steep enough and rocky enough to kill you. I didn't think. I just ran. I was small, fast. I scrambled into the front seat through the open window. I tried to pull the brake, but I wasn't strong enough. So I grabbed the wheel and yanked it hard to the left, crashing the car into a massive oak tree just before the edge. The impact threw me against the dashboard. The windshield shattered. A jagged piece of glass, hot from the friction or maybe just sharp as hell, sliced my face open. Then the engine caught fire. I remember the heat. I remember dragging Gavin out the back door just before the front of the car was engulfed. I woke up in the hospital with bandages covering half my head. The doctors saved my eye, but the scar was there to stay. You'd think saving your brother's life would earn you some gratitude. And for a week or two it did. Mom cried. Dad bought me ice cream. Gavin looked at me with wide, scared eyes. But then the reality set in. The scar wasn't going away. People stared at the grocery store. Kids at school pointed. And my mother, Margaret Ingram, cared about appearances more than she cared about breathing. To her, my face was an embarrassment, a flaw in her perfect family portrait. Slowly, over the years, the narrative changed. They stopped talking about the accident. If someone asked, Mom would vaguely say I was clumsy or had a childhood mishap. They buried the truth because the truth, that their golden boy Gavin had been helpless and their messy son Liam was the hero, didn't fit the script. By the time we were adults, I was just the brother with the scar, the mechanic, the disappointment, and Gavin was the star. Fast forward to 3 months ago. I was under the hood of a '68 Mustang, trying to coax the carburetor back to life, when my phone buzzed. It was Mom. Liam, she said, her voice tight. Pick up. I wiped my hands on a rag. Hey Mom. What's up? Gavin is getting married, she announced. No hello. No how are you? To Emily, the lawyer. That's great, I said, genuinely happy for him. When's the date? In 3 months. At the Grand Oak. She paused. We need to talk about your involvement. My involvement? Yes, obviously you're invited. Your family. But Liam, this is a very high-profile event. Emily comes from a good family. Gavin has important clients coming. We need you to. She trailed off, but I knew what was coming. Need me to what, Mom? Clean up, she said sharply. Get a haircut. Buy a new suit. And for heaven's sake, see a dermatologist about that thing on your face. Maybe there's a cream or laser treatment. Just try to look normal for one day. Don't embarrass your brother. I gripped the phone so hard the plastic creaked. I'll be there, Mom, I said quietly. I'll wear a suit. Good. Oh, and Liam? We might need some help with the deposit for the venue. Gavin's assets are tied up in investments right now. That was code for Gavin is broke again. I sighed. How much? 5,000. Just a loan, of course. Until his commission check clears. It wasn't a loan. It never was. I'd been quietly paying off Gavin's credit card bills, his car repairs, even Dad's gambling debts for years. They thought I was just a grease monkey, but a good mechanic makes good money. I lived simply. I saved. And I loved them stupidly, blindly. I wanted them to be proud of me or at least to need me. I'll transfer it tonight, I said. Thanks, she said, and hung up. I stared at the phone. I looked at my reflection in the side mirror of the Mustang. The scar ran down my cheek like a lightning bolt. Too ugly, I whispered to myself, but I transferred the money, because that's what I did. I was the safety net they didn't acknowledge, the foundation they walked on while looking up at the stars. I didn't know then that this wedding would be the moment the foundation finally cracked. I didn't know that Emily, the woman I barely knew, was watching everything. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a masterclass in humiliation. I tried. God knows I tried. I went to a barber and got a clean cut. I bought a charcoal gray suit that fit decent enough. But every interaction with my family felt like I was walking on broken glass. A week before the big day, there was a rehearsal dinner at a trendy downtown bistro. Gavin had rented out the entire patio. He was holding court at the head table, a glass of expensive scotch in his hand, laughing loudly at his own jokes. Emily sat next to him, looking beautiful but quiet. Her eyes kept darting around the room, observing. I arrived a few minutes late because a customer had an emergency breakdown on the interstate. I still had a faint smudge of grease near my ear that I'd missed in my rush to shower. I walked onto the patio, spotting my parents. "Liam," Gavin called out, his voice booming. "The prodigal mechanic returns." Conversation stopped. Heads turned. I forced a smile and walked over. "Hey, Gavin. Congrats, man." I held out a hand. He looked at my hand, then at my face, then back at my hand. He didn't shake it. He just clapped me on the shoulder. Hard. "Thanks, buddy. Glad you could make it. Try not to touch anything white. Okay? Don't want any oil stains on the tablecloths." A few of his friends chuckled. My face burned. "I scrubbed up, Gavin." Sure. "Hey everyone, this is my little brother, Liam. He fixes cars. If anyone has a flat tire later, you know who to call." More laughter. It wasn't mean-spirited, exactly, but it was dismissive. It reduced me to a utility, a servant. I took a seat at the far end of the table, next to a cousin I hadn't seen in years. Throughout dinner, I caught Emily looking at me, not staring, just watching, like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Halfway through the meal, Gavin stood up to make a toast. "I just want to say," he began, raising his glass, "that this wedding is going to be the event of the year. We spared no expense. Because Emily deserves the best, and honestly, so do I." He winked. "We've got the best venue, the best food, the best photographer. It's all about the aesthetic, right? Perfection." Everyone clapped. I clapped too. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mom, sitting 3 chairs away. "Mom, can you fix the collar of your shirt? It's crooked. And turn your head to the right. The left side is facing the entrance." She didn't want people walking in to see my scar first thing. I put the phone down, feeling a lump in my throat. I excused myself and went to the bar to get a beer. "He's a lot, isn't he?" I turned. It was Emily. She had slipped away from the head table. "He's just excited," I said, playing the loyal brother. "He loves being the center of attention." "He loves the attention," Emily corrected softly. She took a sip of her wine. "Liam, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "The scar. Gavin told me you got it in a bar fight. Getting drunk and rowdy." I froze. A bar fight? I've never been in a fight in my life. "Is that what he said?" "Yeah. And your mom said you were troubled. That you fell in with a bad crowd." She looked at me intently. "But you don't look like a brawler, Liam. You look—" She paused. "Kind." I took a long pull of my beer. I wanted to tell her the truth. I wanted to scream it. I saved him. I pulled his ungrateful body out of a burning car. But the habit of silence was too strong. "It was an accident, Emily. A long time ago. Gavin remembers things his own way." She narrowed her eyes. "Interesting." Just then, Gavin appeared, wrapping an arm around Emily's waist. "Babe, there you are. Why are you talking to Liam? You're boring her, bro." "We were just chatting," Emily said, pulling slightly away from him. "Well, come on. The investors are here. I need you to look pretty." He dragged her away. I saw the flash of annoyance on her face, but she went. 2 days later, Mom showed up at my garage. She walked in holding a handkerchief over her nose like she was entering a toxic waste zone. "Liam," she said, placing a small shopping bag on my workbench. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I brought you this." She pulled out a jar of heavy-duty theatrical concealer. "For the wedding." I stared at the jar. "You want me to wear makeup?" "It's not makeup, it's camouflage. For the photos, Liam. Please, just cover it up. For me? For Gavin? We want everything to be perfect." "My face isn't perfect, Mom. It never will be." "Don't be difficult," she snapped. "You know how sensitive Gavin is about appearances. He's trying to build a brand. Having a brother who looks like a thug doesn't help." "A thug?" "I saved his life." The words slipped out before I could stop them. Mom's face went cold. We agreed not to discuss that. It upsets your father. Just use the cream, Liam. Or stay in the back. She turned and left, her heels clicking on the concrete. I picked up the jar and threw it into the trash can so hard it cracked the plastic liner. The day before the wedding, I found out the truth about the money. I was at the bank, depositing a check from a restoration job I'd just finished on a vintage Corvette. The teller, Mrs. Higgins, knew me well. Big week for the Ingram family, she smiled. Your brother must be excited. Yeah, I said. It was so nice of you to help him out with that big transfer last month, she added innocently. And the one yesterday. I frowned. Yesterday? Yes, the $5,000 to Gavin Ingram Real Estate. Just like the other ones. I hadn't transferred money yesterday. I checked my account on my phone. Sure enough, $5,000 gone. Mom had access to that specific savings account because it was originally a joint one from when I was a teenager and saving for college. A fund they drained for Gavin's first car, by the way. I had kept it open for emergencies for them. I called Mom immediately. Did you take $5,000 from my account? Oh, Liam. She sounded breathless. It was an emergency. The florist demanded cash up front or she was going to pull the hydrangeas. Gavin was indisposed. I meant to tell you. We'll pay you back after the wedding gifts come in. That's stealing, Mom. It's family. Don't be so dramatic. You have plenty of money from your greasy little shop. Gavin needs this. He's building a future. I hung up. I felt sick. It wasn't just the money. It was the entitlement. They stripped me for parts to build Gavin's shiny exterior. And the worst part? Gavin was probably telling everyone he paid for it all. I thought about not going. I really did. I sat in my truck for an hour, staring at the dashboard. But I loved Emily. In the short time I'd known her, she seemed decent. And I knew if I didn't show, I'd be the villain forever. The jealous brother who boycotted the wedding. So I went. I put on the suit. I didn't wear the concealer. And I drove to the Grand Oak Resort, walking straight into the lion's den. The morning of the wedding was chaotic. I arrived early, as requested, to help with logistics, which really meant free labor. The wedding planner had quit the day before, probably because Gavin tried to pay her in exposure, so things were a mess. I found Gavin in the bridal suite, yelling at a caterer. I ordered the filet mignon, not the sirloin. Do you know who I am? Gavin was red in the face. Sir, the invoice wasn't paid in full for the upgrade, the caterer said calmly. Gavin spotted me. Liam, thank God. Do you have your credit card? No, I said flatly. What? Dude, come on. It's just a couple grand. I'll Venmo you. You owe me $10,000 already, Gavin. Plus the loan Mom took yesterday. Gavin scoffed, waving his hand dismissively. Stop counting pennies. You're embarrassing yourself. Fine, serve the chicken. Whatever. He turned to me, looking me up and down. You didn't use the cream. No. He sighed. A long, exaggerated sound of suffering. Fine. Just try to keep your left side away from the guests. And for God's sake, don't talk to the investors about cars. Tell them you're in logistics or waste management. Something vague. I gritted my teeth. I'm a mechanic, Gavin. A master mechanic. Yeah, exactly. Waste management. Now go check if the chairs are set up. One of the groomsmen is hungover and useless. I spent the next 3 hours hauling chairs, setting up the arch, and practically wiring the sound system myself because the DJ was late. I was sweating through my undershirt by the time I finished. I went to the bathroom to splash water on my face. I looked in the mirror. The scar was bright red from the exertion. You look like a monster, I whispered to myself. That's what they made me feel like. The ceremony began at noon. It was beautiful, I have to admit. The sun filtered through the old oak trees. Emily looked stunning walking down the aisle. But when I looked for my seat, I realized there wasn't one in the front row. The front row was for immediate family. My parents were there, but the seat next to Dad was empty. My name card was on the third row, behind a large pillar, next to Emily's distant aunt who fell asleep before the vows started. I sat there watching the back of my brother's head. I watched my parents wipe away tears of joy. I wondered if they ever cried for me. Did they cry when I was in the hospital, or were they just worried about the medical bills? During the vows, Gavin's voice wavered perfectly. He talked about loyalty, about truth, about being a protector. I almost laughed out loud. The hypocrisy was physical. It felt like a weight on my chest. Then it was Emily's turn. She looked at Gavin, her eyes searching his face. She spoke about partnership and honesty. There was a hesitation in her voice that I don't think anyone else caught. She knew something was off. After the ceremony, the reception moved to the great lawn. This was the moment Gavin had been obsessing over for months. The golden hour photos. He had hired a photographer who had been featured in Vogue. I tried to hang back near the bar, nursing a soda. I didn't want to be in the photos. I knew I wasn't wanted. But Dad came over. "Liam," he mumbled, not looking me in the eye. "Mom says you have to come for the pictures. It looks bad if you're not there." "I thought I ruined the aesthetic, Dad." He winced. "Just come on. Get it over with." I followed him. The guests were mingling, sipping champagne. The bridal party was lined up. Gavin was posing, one hand in his pocket, looking like a GQ model. Mom was fluffing her dress. "Okay, family," the photographer Sam called out. "Parents of the groom and the brother. Come on in." I walked over. I stood on the far end, leaving a gap between me and Dad. "Closer," Sam directed. "We need to show the love." I stepped closer. I felt the tension radiating off my mother. She stiffened as I brushed her arm. "Okay, smile." Sam raised his camera. That's when it happened. The moment that changed everything. "Wait!" Gavin's voice rang out. He stepped out of the formation. He walked up to Sam and put a hand on the lens. "We can't use that angle." "Why not?" Sam asked, confused. "The light is perfect." "The light is fine," Gavin said, pointing a finger directly at me without looking at me. "The subject is the problem. Look at him." Every head turned. 200 people looked at me. "We can't have that," Gavin gestured to my face. "In the center of the album. It's distracting. It's ugly." My heart hammered against my ribs. I felt naked. "Gavin," Emily said warningly. "Stop." "No, I'm serious." Gavin laughed, but it was a cruel, nervous sound. "I paid $5,000 for these photos. I want them perfect." "Sam, just crop him out. Or put him behind Dad. Way behind." I looked at Mom. "Mom," I whispered. She sighed, looking pained, as if I was the one causing a scene. "Liam, honey, maybe just step to the side? You know how Gavin is about his Instagram. It's just for the pictures. You ruin the aesthetic, dear." The words hung in the air. You ruin the aesthetic. It wasn't just a rejection. It was an erasure. They didn't just want me to move. They wanted me to not exist. The guests started whispering. I heard words like rude, brother, scar. I looked at Dad. He was studying a spot of grass near his shoe, covering his mouth to hide a nervous, or maybe amused, chuckle. That was it. The cord snapped. The years of paying their bills, fixing their cars, taking their insults, swallowing my pride. It all turned into ash in my mouth. "Okay," I said. My voice was calm, which surprised me. "Okay." I turned around. I started walking away from the group, away from the camera, away from the family that had just disowned me in public. "Where are you going?" Gavin called out. "We're not done. Just stand behind the tree." I didn't stop. I was heading for my truck. I was going to drive until the gas ran out. But I didn't make it 5 steps. "No!" The scream was piercing. It wasn't me. It was Emily. I stopped. I turned back. Emily had hiked up her wedding dress and was storming across the grass. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at Gavin with a fury I had never seen in a human being. She grabbed my arm. Her grip was tight, her nails digging into my suit jacket. "If he leaves," she yelled, her voice echoing off the resort walls. I leave. Gavin blinked, his smile faltering. Babe, calm down. It's just Liam. He's being dramatic. Dramatic. Emily let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. She turned to the guests, then back to Gavin. You just humiliated your own brother. The brother who... She stopped, taking a breath. He is the only real man in this family. Emily, Mom gasped, clutching her pearls. Lower your voice. The neighbors. Screw the neighbors, Margaret. Emily shouted. The crowd gasped. You could hear a pin drop on the grass. And screw your aesthetic. Gavin stepped forward, trying to grab Emily's hand. Emily, you're making a scene. You're stressed. Let's just take the photo and... Don't touch me, she hissed, pulling back. You want to talk about photos? You want to talk about ugly? Let's talk about ugly Gavin. She turned to the crowd. She looked like an avenging angel in white silk. Does everyone know how Liam got that scar? I froze. Emily, don't. I whispered. I didn't want pity. She ignored me. Gavin tells people it was a bar fight. Mom says it was a clumsy accident. But the truth, she pointed a trembling finger at Gavin. The truth is that 20 years ago, Liam pulled Gavin out of a burning car. He was 10 years old. He walked into fire to save his big brother. Murmurs erupted through the crowd. Shocked faces turned to Gavin. He looked pale, sweat beading on his forehead. That scar, Emily's voice broke, tears streaming down her face now, is a badge of honor. It's proof that he loved you more than his own life. And you mock it, you try to hide it, you call him ugly. She turned to Mom. And you let him, you raised a hero and you treat him like a shameful secret. Mom opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She looked around frantically, realizing she was losing the audience. That's a lie, Gavin stammered. He remembers it wrong. It wasn't like that. Oh, really? Emily reached into the pocket of her dress. It had pockets, thank God, and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Because I did some digging, Gavin. I was curious why Liam was so different from you. I found the police report from the accident. Minor male, age 10. Sustained severe lacerations and burns while extracting passenger from vehicle. She held the paper up. It's right here. Gavin looked like he was going to vomit. But that's not all, Emily continued, and I realized with a jolt that she wasn't done. She was burning the whole house down. Gavin, who paid for this wedding? I did, Gavin said quickly. My investments. Bullshit, Emily screamed. I saw the bank statements, Gavin. I saw the transfers. Ingram, 5,000 yesterday, 10,000 last month. Mortgage payments, car payments. It's all Liam. Liam has been funding your pathetic lifestyle for years. The silence was absolute. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. Emily turned to me. Her eyes were soft now, filled with tears. Liam, you paid for the flowers you're standing next to. You paid for the champagne they're drinking. You paid for the suit that ungrateful coward is wearing. I looked at Gavin. He couldn't meet my eyes. He was shrinking, deflating right in front of me. The golden boy was melting. Is this true? Mr. Henderson, Gavin's biggest investor and a man I knew by reputation as a no-nonsense tycoon, stepped forward. He looked at Gavin. Gavin didn't answer. Yes, it's true, I said. My voice was hoarse. I looked at my brother. It's all true. The revelation hung in the air like smoke. People were looking at me differently now. Not with pity, but with awe. And at Gavin? With contempt. Mr. Henderson shook his head. I don't do business with liars, Gavin. And I certainly don't do business with men who mistreat their family. He turned to his wife. We're leaving. That started the exodus. Wait, Mr. Henderson, Gavin cried out, chasing after him. It's a misunderstanding. She's hysterical. Don't you dare call me hysterical, Emily said, her voice deadly calm now. She looked down at her hand. She grabbed the large diamond ring. A ring I knew Gavin had charged to a credit card I'd probably end up paying, and slid it off her finger. She walked up to Gavin, who had stopped chasing the investor. She took his hand, pressed the ring into his palm, and closed his fingers over it. "I can't do this," she said. "I thought I was marrying a successful, charming man. But you're just a shell, Gavin. A pretty, empty shell painted with your brother's money and your mother's lies." "Emily, baby, please," Gavin whimpered. "Think about the guests. Think about the aesthetic." She laughed. It was a dark sound. "The aesthetic is dead, Gavin." She turned to me. "Liam, get me out of here." "Emily, you don't have to," I said. "Get me out of here, please." Her eyes pleaded with me. She was holding it together by a thread. I nodded. "Okay." I offered her my arm. Not the arm of a servant, but the arm of a gentleman. She took it. We turned and walked away from the altar, down the aisle strewn with white rose petals. "Liam!" Mom shrieked. She ran in front of us, blocking the path. Her face was twisted in a mask of rage and panic. "You stop right there. You are ruining everything. Tell her you lied. Tell her the money was a gift." I looked at my mother, really looked at her. For the first time, I didn't see the matriarch I desperately wanted to please. I saw a sad, vain woman terrified of losing her status. "Move, Mom," I said. "How dare you speak to me like that? After all we've done for you." "Done for me?" I laughed. Felt good. "You mean hiding me? Ashaming me? Taking my money to prop up Gavin? I'm done, Mom. The bank is closed. The mechanic is off duty. If you walk away now," Dad spoke up, his voice trembling, "don't bother coming to Christmas or Thanksgiving." I looked at my dad, the man who covered his mouth to laugh at me. "Dad," I said gently, "I haven't felt welcome at Christmas in 20 years. Keep your turkey." I stepped around them. Mom tried to grab Emily's dress, but Emily swatted her hand away. "Don't touch me, Margaret." We walked to the parking lot. The guests parted like the Red Sea. I saw my cousin Mike holding up his phone, streaming the whole thing. I looked right into the lens and winked. We got to my truck. My beat-up, rusty Ford F-150. It looked out of place among the Mercedes and Jaguars. "Your chariot awaits," I said, opening the passenger door. Emily gathered her tulle skirt and climbed in without hesitation. "It's perfect," she said. I got in the driver's seat, cranked the engine. It roared to life, a deep, throaty rumble that I had tuned to perfection. As we pulled out of the resort, I looked in the rearview mirror. Gavin was on his knees in the grass, Mom was screaming at Dad, and the perfect aesthetic was in ruins. We didn't talk for the first 10 miles. I just drove. The wind rushed through the open windows. Emily took the veil off her head and threw it into the back seat. She kicked off her heels and put her bare feet on the dashboard. "Do you want to go home?" I asked. "No," she said. "I can't face my parents yet. They loved Gavin. They're going to be furious." "Where then?" "Is there a bar? A dive bar? Somewhere with cheap beer and no white tablecloths?" I smiled. "I know just the place." I took her to O'Malley's, a roadside joint where the bikers and truckers hung out. When we walked in, me in a suit, her in a full wedding gown, the whole place went silent. Then old Joe at the bar started clapping. Soon, everyone was clapping. We sat in a booth. I ordered a pitcher of beer and a basket of fries. "Thank you," Emily said, taking a long sip of beer, "for everything, for saving me from making the biggest mistake of my life. You saved yourself, Emily. You stood up for me. No one has ever done that." She reached across the table and touched my scar. Her fingers were cool. I didn't flinch. "They're fools, Liam. It's beautiful. It shows you survived." We sat there for hours. She told me about how Gavin had been controlling her, making her diet for the wedding, criticizing her friends. I told her about the garage, about my dreams of expanding. It was the most real conversation I'd had in years. The fallout was swift and brutal. The next morning, my phone had 40 missed calls, 30 from Mom, 10 from Dad. None from Gavin. I didn't answer. I went to the garage. I had work to do. Around noon, a black sedan pulled up. It was Mr. Henderson. I wiped my hands and walked out. "Mr. Henderson," I said, "can I help you?" "I wanted to apologize, son," he said. He looked tired. I watched that young man preen and pose for months, and I didn't see the rot underneath. "I judged you by your cover, and I was wrong." "It's okay, sir." "No, it's not. I pulled my funding from Gavin's agency this morning. He's gonna have a hard time finding work in this town. Word travels fast." He paused. "I also heard you're a hell of a mechanic. I have a 1955 Jaguar that needs a gentle touch. Interested?" "I'd be honored." "Good. And Liam? You're a good man. Don't let them tell you otherwise." Mr. Henderson wasn't the only one. My cousin Mike's video had gone viral on TikTok. Millions of views. The comments were brutal for Gavin and Mom. But for me, people were calling me a hero. Strangers were finding my garage online and leaving 5-star reviews just to support me. 3 days later, Mom showed up at my house. She looked 10 years older. Her hair was messy, her eyes red. "Liam," she said through the screen door, "we need to talk." "I have nothing to say, Mom. Gavin he's in a bad place. The vendors are suing him. He owes the resort $20,000. He can't pay his mortgage." "Sounds like a Gavin problem." "He's your brother. You have money. We know you do. You have to help him. Just this once. We'll pay you back." I opened the door and stepped out. "No." "What?" "No. I'm not giving him a dime. I'm not paying for the wedding that I was kicked out of. I'm not paying for the house I'm not welcome in." "You ungrateful." Mom started, her face twisting. "We raised you. You tolerated me," I corrected. "You tolerated me as long as I was useful. As long as I paid the bills and stayed out of the photos." "Well, I'm out of the photos for good now, Mom." "You're dead to us," she spat. "I've been dead to you since the accident," I said quietly. "You just forgot to bury me because you needed my wallet." She stood there, shaking. Then she turned and walked away. I watched her go. It hurt, deep in my chest. But it was a clean hurt. The hurt of pulling out a splinter that had been festering for decades. That evening, I got a text from Emily. "Emily, hey. Found a small apartment. Starting over. Want to get burgers?" My treat this time. I smiled. I grabbed my keys. I looked in the hallway mirror. The scar was there. Red, jagged, undeniable. "Not too ugly," I said to the reflection. I walked out the door, leaving the ghosts of my family behind. I had a burger to eat, a business to run, and for the first time in my life, a future that belonged entirely to me. Silence. That was the first thing I noticed. For 30 years, my life had been a cacophony of demands, criticisms, and the high-pitched anxiety of trying to please people who couldn't be pleased. But in the days following the wedding fiasco, the silence in my garage was different. It wasn't empty. It was peaceful. It was the sound of a life finally belonging to its owner. But while my world was quieting down, the world of the Ingrams was catching fire. I learned the details not from my mother, whose calls I had finally blocked, but from the grapevine of a small town that loves a fallen hero. And Gavin was falling hard. The video my cousin Mike posted didn't just go viral. It became a local scandal. People in our town value hard work and humility. Seeing the golden boy mock his brother's disfigurement while living off that same brother's money turned the community stomach. A week after the wedding, I was under the chassis of a '69 Chevelle, enjoying the smell of grease and old steel, when a pair of expensive, albeit scuffed, Italian loafers appeared in my line of sight. I slid out on the creeper. It was Gavin. He looked like a ghost of the man who had stood at the altar. His perfect hair was messy, his eyes were bloodshot, and he wasn't wearing a tie. He looked around the garage with a mix of desperation and his usual disdain. "We need to talk," he said. His voice lacked its usual boom. It sounded thin. "I'm working, Gavin," I said, grabbing a rag to wipe my hands. I didn't stand up immediately. I let him tower over me, realizing for the first time that he didn't look big. He just looked tall. "The bank is calling," he said, cutting to the chase. "They're going to foreclose on the condo." "I thought you were a real estate mogul," I said calmly, standing up. "Sell it." "I can't," he snapped, his hands shaking. "I'm underwater, Liam." The market shifted and I leveraged it to pay for the engagement ring, and the deposit on the venue, and the lease on the BMW. I leaned against the workbench. "You leveraged a house you couldn't afford to buy things you didn't need to impress people who don't care about you." "I did it for the family brand," he shouted, then lowered his voice as my mechanic, Old Man Miller, glanced over. "Look, Mom is a wreck. She's locking herself in her room. Dad is drinking again. If I lose the condo, I have to move back in with them. Do you want that? Do you want them suffering?" "I want them to live within their means," I said. "Like I do." Gavin stepped closer, invading my personal space. "You think you're big time now because Mr. Henderson gave you a pity contract? He's gonna drop you, Liam. You're a grease monkey. You don't belong in his world. But I do. I just need a bridge loan. 50,000. I'll pay you back with interest when I land the downtown development deal." "There is no downtown development deal." A voice rang out from the office door. We both turned. Emily was standing there. She was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, her hair in a ponytail. She held a manila folder in her hand. She looked more beautiful here, amidst the tires and tools, than she ever did in that suffocating ballroom. "Emily?" Gavin breathed, his face lighting up with a pathetic hope. "Babe, I knew you'd come around. We can fix this. I'll get the ring back from the pawn shop and—" "I'm not here for you, Gavin," she said coldly. She walked over to me and handed me the folder. "I'm here because I'm a lawyer, and I hate fraud." "Fraud?" I opened the folder. "I did some digging," Emily said, ignoring Gavin's pale face. "Gavin didn't just borrow money from your mom. He forged your father's signature to co-sign on a business loan 3 years ago. A loan that is currently in default." I looked at the documents. There it was. Robert Ingram's signature, shaky and visibly traced, next to Gavin's flourish. "You committed a felony against Dad?" I asked, looking up at him. He would have said yes. Gavin stammered, sweat pouring down his face. "I just wanted to save him the paperwork. It was for the business, for the college fund I was going to set up for our future kids." "You don't have kids, Gavin," Emily said. "And you spent that loan on a trip to the Maldives and a Rolex." "You need a lawyer, Gavin," I said, closing the folder. "Not a brother. You wouldn't turn me in," he whispered. "I'm your blood. I'm the one Mom loves." It was a low blow, aimed directly at the childhood wound that never quite healed. But as I looked at him, shivering, lying, willing to destroy our father's credit to save his own skin, I realized the wound had closed. "Get out of my shop," I said. "Liam, please. Get out." I pointed to the door with a wrench. Gavin looked at me, then at Emily. He sneered, a flash of his old arrogance surfacing one last time. "You deserve each other, the traitor and the monster." He stormed out. I watched him go, feeling a heavy weight lift off my chest. "Are you okay?" Emily asked, touching my arm. "Yeah," I said, and I meant it. "I think I finally am." But the reckoning wasn't over. The social fallout was just beginning. In a small town, reputation is currency, and the Ingrams were bankrupt. My mother tried to launch a counteroffensive. She went to the local church, crying to the ladies' auxiliary about how her ungrateful son had abandoned the family in their time of need. She spun a story about me being mentally unstable, about the scar affecting my brain. It might have worked 10 years ago, but people had seen the video. They had seen the cruelty in her eyes when she called me ugly. Mrs. Gable, the town gossip and head of the church choir, came into my shop for an oil change a few days later. "Your mother was at the bake sale yesterday," she said, watching me check her dipstick. "Is that so?" I kept working. She was saying some terrible things, Liam. Saying you stole from Gavin. I paused. You know me, Mrs. Gable. You've known me since I was a kid mowing your lawn. I know, she said firmly. That's why I told Margaret that if she said one more word against you, she wouldn't be welcome in the choir anymore. We don't take kindly to liars in the house of God. I looked up, surprised. Mrs. Gable gave me a wink. And by the way, the video? My grandson showed me. You looked very handsome in that suit. Dignified. Thank you, Mrs. Gable. The validation was overwhelming. It turned out, I hadn't been invisible all these years. People had seen me working late. They had seen me helping stranded motorists for free. They had seen the character beneath the scar. My family's attempt to hide me had only made my eventual visibility more powerful. Then came the legal hammer. Mr. Henderson didn't just pull funding. He sued Gavin for breach of contract and misrepresentation of assets. Since Gavin had used Henderson's investment money for personal expenses, the wedding, it was a slam dunk case. I sat in my office one afternoon, reviewing the quarterly earnings, which were up 40%, thanks to the influx of new customers, when my phone rang. It was Dad. I hesitated. I had blocked Mom and Gavin, but I hadn't blocked Dad. Maybe because a part of me still remembered him teaching me to fish before the accident. Before he became a shadow of himself. Hello, Dad. Liam. His voice sounded old, cracked. The sheriff is here. They're serving eviction papers on Gavin's condo. And they're asking questions about a loan with my signature. I know, Dad. Did you know he did it? I found out last week. Silence on the line. Then, a sound I had never heard before. My father was crying. Not the polite, stifled sniffing at a funeral, but deep, racking sobs of a man realizing his legacy was a lie. I let it happen, he wept. I let her treat you like that because I was weak. I thought if we made Gavin perfect, it would make up for the accident. For me forgetting the parking brake. I gripped the phone. He had never said it out loud. He had never admitted it was his fault. It wasn't the brake, Dad, I said softly. It was what you did after. You threw away the son who saved the family to protect the son who watched it burn. I know, he choked out. I'm so sorry, Liam. I'm so sorry. I forgive you, Dad, I said. And I did. But I can't fix this for you. You have to face the truth. You have to tell the sheriff the truth about that signature. Or you're going to lose the house too. I will, he whispered. I will. He hung up. 2 days later, I heard that Robert Ingram had filed a police report regarding identity theft. It was the hardest thing he ever did, turning in his golden child. But it was the first act of real parenting I'd seen from him in decades. Gavin was arrested for fraud. The aesthetic wasn't just ruined. It was incarcerated. Through all this, Emily became a constant presence. She wasn't just my lawyer. She was my friend. We spent evenings sitting on the hood of my truck, watching the sunset, talking about everything and nothing. You know, she said one night, tracing the line of a constellation with her finger, I was going to change my name to Ingram. Now I'm glad I didn't. Ingram isn't a bad name, I said. It just needs a little restoration, like an old car. She looked at me, her eyes reflecting the dying light. You're restoring it, Liam. You're redefining what it means. That night, as I locked up the garage, I looked at the sign above the door. Liam's Auto Repair. I thought about changing it. I thought about putting the family name back up there, reclaiming it. Ingram Restoration. It had a nice ring to it. 1 year later, the sign above the door sparkled in the morning sun. Ingram Restoration and Customs. The garage had expanded. I bought the lot next door, formerly a dilapidated warehouse, and turned it into a showroom for classic cars. The concrete floors were polished, the walls were painted a clean, industrial gray, and the air smelled of success. I had 3 new mechanics working for me, full salary and benefits. I even set up a college fund program for their kids, something my father never did for me. I was in the office, reviewing a contract for a complete overhaul of a 1960 Aston Martin, when Aunt Claire walked in. I hadn't seen much of Aunt Claire over the years. She was Dad's older sister, the black sheep, because she refused to play Mom's social climbing games. She lived on a farm upstate and rarely came to town. "Well," she said, looking around the sleek office. "You've done all right for yourself, haven't you, kid?" "Aunt Claire?" I smiled, standing up to hug her. She smelled like rain and peppermint. "What brings you to the city?" "The auction," she said bluntly. "Your parents' house." I stiffened. I knew it was happening today. After Gavin's legal fees, the restitution for the fraud, and Dad's own debts coming to light, they had to sell the big colonial house on the hill. They were moving into a 2-bedroom rental on the other side of town. "I'm not going," I said. "I don't need anything from that place." "You should go," she said. She reached into her oversized purse and pulled out an old, framed photograph. "Because there's something you need to see." She handed me the photo. It was black and white, yellowed with age. It showed a man standing in front of a muddy construction site, holding a shovel. He was covered in dirt, sweating, but he was grinning with a ferocity that jumped off the paper. And on his face, running down his left cheek, was a deep, dark scar. I stared at the photo. "Who is this?" "That's your grandfather Silas," Claire said softly. "My father. He built the Ingram fortune from dirt. He was a coal miner before he started the construction company. Got that scar in a tunnel collapse. Saved 3 men before the roof came down." I ran my thumb over the photo. The resemblance was terrifying. The jawline, the eyes, even the way he stood. And the scar. Mom never put up pictures of him, I realized. "Margaret hated him," Claire laughed dryly. "She thought he was crass, dirty. She married your father for the money Silas made, but she spent her whole life trying to scrub the coal miner off the family name. She wanted polished, pretty things, like Gavin." She looked at me intently. "But you are Silas reborn. The grit, the hands, the face. You're the true heir, Liam. Not because of the money, but because you're the only one who actually inherited his spirit. They hated you because every time they looked at you, they saw the man whose hard work they were ashamed of." Tears pricked my eyes. All my life I thought I was the mistake, the genetic anomaly. But I wasn't. I was the original design. "Come to the auction," Claire said. "Claim what's yours." I drove my truck to the house on the hill. Cars were lined up down the driveway. Strangers were walking through the front door, judging the furniture, picking over the remnants of my parents' facade. I walked in. The house felt small. Without the ego filling it, it was just wood and plaster. I saw my parents in the corner of the living room. Mom looked frail. The Botox had worn off, revealing deep lines of bitterness. Dad was in a wheelchair now. His health had declined rapidly after the stress of the trial. When Mom saw me, she flinched. She looked at my suit, a tailored navy blue that fit perfectly, and then at my face. She didn't say a word. There was no fight left in her. She just looked away, unable to bear the sight of her own failure standing tall. Gavin wasn't there. He was serving 18 months in minimum security for fraud. I heard he was working in the prison laundry. No aesthetic there. The auctioneer began selling off the items. The crystal chandelier. The grand piano nobody played. The art that Mom bought because a magazine said it was trendy. "Lot 45, the auctioneer called out. An antique mechanic's tool chest. Solid oak. Belonged to the late Silas Ingram. Found in the attic. It was battered, scratched, and covered in dust. Mom had hidden it away like she hid me." "Do I hear $50? The auctioneer asked. Silence. The fancy crowd didn't want a dirty tool chest. 100, I called out from the back. Heads turned. People recognized me. "That's Liam Ingram," someone whispered. "The one with the successful shop." 500, a dealer shouted. 1,000, I said calmly. 5,000, the dealer countered, annoying. 10,000, I said. I wasn't losing this. The room went quiet. The dealer shook his head. Sold. To the gentleman in the back. I walked up to claim it. I ran my hand over the wood. It was warm. I looked at my parents. Dad was crying again, silently. Mom was staring at the floor. I didn't say anything to them. I didn't need to rub it in. My success was the loudest noise in the room. I had the only thing in this house that mattered. I had the legacy. That evening I had a date. Emily met me at the new bistro downtown, the same one where the rehearsal dinner had been. But this time we sat at the best table. She looked radiant in a red dress. It had been a year of healing for her too. She had started her own practice, focusing on family law and helping victims of financial abuse. So, she said, clinking her glass against mine, to the owner of the grandfather's chest. To the woman who gave me the courage to buy it, I replied. We ate, we laughed. It wasn't the frantic, performative happiness of Gavin's world. It was slow. It was real. I saw Gavin's parole hearing is coming up in a few months, she said. Are you going? No, I said. I wish him well. I hope he finds a job. But he's not my problem anymore. I have a business to run. And I reached across the table and took her hand. I have a future to build. She squeezed my hand. Her thumb brushed over the scar on my cheek. It had become a habit of hers, a gesture of affection that still made my heart race. You know, she said softly, I used to think aesthetic meant symmetry, perfection, no flaws. And now I know that's just decoration, she said. True beauty is resilience. It's the story written on you. It's walking into a fire and coming out the other side holding someone else's hand. She leaned in and kissed me, right on the scar. I closed my eyes. For 30 years I had felt ugly. I had felt unwanted. I had felt like a mistake that needed to be cropped out of the picture. But as I sat there, holding the hand of the woman who saw me when I was invisible, owning the legacy of the grandfather who built the world with his hands, I realized something. The picture my mother tried to create was flat. It was two-dimensional and fragile. My life was messy. It was scarred. It was covered in grease and hard work. But it was deep. It had texture. It had color. And for the first time in my life, when I looked in the reflection of the window, I didn't see a monster. I didn't see a victim. I saw a man, a real man, and that was the only aesthetic I would ever need. If you've made it this far, thank you. Liam's journey from the shadows to the spotlight isn't just a drama about a wedding gone wrong. It's a testament to the power of self-worth. We live in a world obsessed with filters, angles, and the perfect aesthetic. Like the Ingrams, so many people sacrifice their integrity and their loved ones just to maintain an image. But this story teaches us a brutal, beautiful truth. You cannot edit your character. Liam's scar was called ugly by his family, but it was actually the physical proof of his greatest virtue, courage. The things that make us different, the flaws we are told to hide, are often the maps of our survival. They are the evidence that we have lived, fought, and persisted. Furthermore, this story reminds us that family is behavior, not blood. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm, especially if they are the ones holding the match. Setting boundaries like Liam did isn't an act of hate. It's an act of self-respect. I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt like the Liam in your family or circle of friends? Have you ever been judged by your appearance or financial status rather than your heart? Or maybe you've had to make the hard choice to cut off toxic family members to save yourself. Drop a good in the comments if you agree that character matters more than appearance. Or share your story below. Your experience might be the exact encouragement someone else needs to read today. Let's build a community here that values the real over the perfect. Thank you for watching, and remember, your scars are your strength. Don't let anyone crop you out of your own life.